Captain Ji-won Kim stood on the bridge of Earth's first faster-than-light ship, watching the alien vessels approach. 3 massive ships hung in space like floating cities. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. After 200 years of wondering if humanity was alone, they finally had their answer. "Captain, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Taewon from the communications station. His young face showed excitement mixed with nervousness. This was the moment that would change everything for Earth. The main screen flickered to life. 2 alien faces appeared, unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The first looked like it was made of living crystal, with faceted features that caught and reflected light. Sharp edges defined what might have been a face, though it was hard to tell where the head ended and the body began. The second alien resembled a giant insect, with multiple eyes arranged in a complex pattern and mandibles that clicked as it moved. "Greetings, small ones," the crystal being said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Ambassador Velshi of the Velthari Republic. This is Hive Speaker Kliktar of the Krikstal Collective. We welcome you to Galactic Civilization." Dr. Hyun-woo Park stepped forward from his position near the captain. As the ship's chief medical officer and xenobiologist, he had spent years preparing for this moment. He studied the aliens carefully, noting their obvious physical advantages. The crystal beings seemed to be made of the same material as their ship's hull, probably incredibly durable. The insect creature looked like it had natural armor plating. "Thank you for your welcome," Captain Ji-won replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am Captain Kim of the Earth vessel Harmony. We come in peace, hoping to learn about the galaxy and find our place among the stars." Hive Speaker Kliktar's mandibles clicked rapidly, creating a sound like chattering teeth. "Your place," it said, "will be determined by your capabilities. All species are classified according to their physical and mental strengths. This determines what roles they can fill in galactic society." Commander Minseo Lee, the ship's security chief, didn't like the sound of that. She had trained for years in various forms of combat, preparing for the possibility that not all aliens would be friendly. But these creatures didn't seem hostile, just condescending. "We would like to invite you to Federation Station 7 for formal first contact procedures," Ambassador Velshi continued. "There you will undergo standard evaluation and classification. Do not worry, small soft ones. The process is quite safe for delicate species." The words "small soft ones" and "delicate species" hit the human crew like cold water. Captain Ji-won felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained diplomatic composure. "We accept your invitation," she said simply. The journey to Federation Station 7 took 6 hours. During that time, the human crew watched alien ships come and go from the massive station. Some vessels were clearly military, bristling with weapons and armor. Others appeared to be cargo haulers, their holds probably filled with goods from 1,000 different worlds. All of them dwarfed the human ship. "Look at the size of those things," Taewon whispered to Dr. Park. "Our entire ship could fit in their cargo bay." "Size isn't everything," Dr. Park replied, though he couldn't hide his own amazement. Humans have always made up for physical limitations with intelligence and adaptability. When they docked at the station, the humans had to wear environmental suits. The station's atmosphere was breathable for them, but the air pressure was different and there were trace gases that might be harmful over long exposure. The aliens noticed this immediately. "See how they require protective shells just to walk among us?" Hive Speaker Kliktar chittered to another insect creature nearby. "Truly, these humans are fragile indeed." The aliens themselves needed no such protection. The crystal beings seemed comfortable in any environment, their bodies adapting to different atmospheric conditions without effort. The insect creatures had natural filters in their breathing systems that could handle almost any air mixture. The evaluation began in a large chamber filled with scanning equipment. Strange lights passed over the humans while alien technicians made notes on glowing tablets. Captain Ji-won and her crew submitted to the tests, though Commander Minseo kept her hand near her sidearm out of habit. Skin thickness, minimal. 1, technician reported. Natural armor, none detected. Healing rate, extremely slow by galactic standards. environmental adaptability, severely limited. Ambassador Velshi nodded as if confirming something she already knew. As expected for a carbon-based species, their bones are hollow calcium structures easily broken. Their organs are soft and unprotected. One impact that would barely scratch a Velthari would likely prove fatal to these creatures. Dr. Park wanted to argue, to explain that human biology was more complex than it appeared, but he held his tongue. There would be time for that later if these aliens proved willing to listen. The final classification came after hours of testing. Species: human, the lead technician announced. Classification: Class D fragile. Recommended status: protected species with limited autonomy. Suitable for agricultural work, basic manufacturing, cultural preservation under supervision. The I word stung worse than any insult. Captain Jiwon had commanded warships and led dangerous missions beyond Earth's solar system. Commander Minseo had fought pirates and hostile corporations in the outer planets. Dr. Park had developed medical techniques that had saved thousands of lives. Now they were being told they were too weak and fragile to be trusted with their own decisions. Your species will be assigned Territory Sector 7G, Ambassador Velshi continued, her crystal features reflecting the chamber's lights. It contains several garden worlds suitable for your biological requirements. You will be protected from the dangers of galactic civilization until you prove capable of greater responsibilities. Territory Sector 7G, Captain Jiwon knew from the briefing materials, was on the outer edge of known space, far from important trade routes, far from centers of power and knowledge. A backwater assignment for a backwater species. "Thank you," she said, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "We are grateful for your generosity." As they prepared to leave the station, Taewon approached Captain Jiwon. "Captain, this isn't right. We're not as weak as they think we are." "No," she agreed, looking out at the vast station filled with alien vessels. "We're not. But they don't know that yet, and maybe that's our advantage." Dr. Park overheard the conversation. He thought about human history, about how often the species had been underestimated. How many times had smaller, seemingly weaker groups overcome larger, apparently stronger ones? How many times had humans surprised everyone, including themselves, with their ability to survive and adapt? The Harmony departed Federation Station 7 carrying new star charts, communication protocols, and a burning determination to prove the galaxy wrong about humanity. They didn't know it yet, but their real test was just beginning. 3 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Federation. The colony ship New Sol now orbited Kepler 442c, a world the aliens had assigned to humanity as their first settlement outside Earth's solar system. The planet looked peaceful from space, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded the colonists of home. "It's perfect," said Dong-yun, the colony administrator, as he watched the planet turn slowly below them. "Stable weather, no dangerous predators, rich soil for farming. The Federation really did pick a safe world for us." Sunho, a maintenance worker who had volunteered for the colony mission, wasn't so sure. He had grown up in the outer colonies, around Mars, where nothing was ever as simple as it first appeared. "Too perfect, maybe," he muttered, checking his equipment one more time. The first landing parties had been on the surface for 2 weeks now, setting up the basic infrastructure for the colony. Everything had gone smoothly so far. The air was breathable, the water was clean, and the soil samples showed excellent potential for Earth crops. Even Commander Yuna Choi, who had expected problems, was starting to relax. That changed on day 15. "Medical emergency at landing site Alpha," came the urgent call over the communication system. Dr. Park, who had remained with the colony ship to oversee the medical preparations, felt his stomach drop. He had been waiting for something to go wrong. "What's the situation?" he asked, already moving toward the shuttle bay. "It's Taewon," came the reply from the surface. "Something attacked him while he was setting up the power generators. His protective suit just dissolved." Dr. Park was on the surface within an hour. What he found there made him question everything the Federation had told them about this safe world. Taewon lay unconscious in the medical tent, his body covered in what looked like severe acid burns. His environmental suit lay in shreds around him, the advanced materials that should have protected him eaten away like paper. What happened? Dr. Park asked the other engineers who had been working with Taewon. We don't know, one of them replied, her face pale with worry. 1 minute he was fine, the next minute his suit started smoking. Then it just fell apart, and these things were all over him. Dr. Park looked closer at Taewon's injuries. The burns went deep, exposing muscle and bone in some places. Any normal person should have died from shock and blood loss by now. But Taewon was still breathing, his vital signs stable though weak. More cases started coming in over the next few days. Colonists working outside found their equipment failing mysteriously. Protective suits would suddenly develop holes. Breathing apparatus would stop working, and always there were the tiny organisms that seemed to eat through anything they touched. Their silicon base, Dr. Park reported to Captain Jiwon during their daily communication. Microscopic creatures that seem to dissolve organic polymers and some metals. They're everywhere in the soil, dormant until something disturbs them. On the orbiting station, Ambassador Velshi and her team watched the human colony with growing concern. The crystalline alien had been assigned to observe humanity's first settlement, expecting it to be a routine monitoring mission. Instead, she was watching what appeared to be a slow-motion disaster. The microorganisms are more aggressive than our surveys indicated, reported Buzik, a Krikstal scientist who had joined the observation team. His insect-like features showed what might have been worry. These silicon feeders could have killed our survey teams if we had stayed longer on the surface. How are the humans responding? Velshi asked, watching the feeds from the colony. They continue working, Buzik replied, his mandibles clicking in confusion. Even the injured ones, it makes no sense. They should evacuate immediately. Down on the surface, Dr. Park was making discoveries that would have amazed the watching. Aliens, if they had understood what they were seeing. Taewon's wounds, which should have been fatal, were beginning to heal. Not just healing, but healing fast. The exposed bone was generating new tissue. The damaged muscles were rebuilding themselves, and new skin was growing over the burns. This is impossible, muttered Dr. Park, looking at the latest medical scans. Humans don't regenerate like this, not this quickly, but the evidence was right in front of him. Not just Taewon, but all the injured colonists were recovering at rates that defied medical textbooks. Sunho, who had lost 3 fingers to the silicon organisms, was showing signs of new bone growth where the fingers had been severed. The tissue, damage on his arms, was healing so quickly that Dr. Park had to take new measurements every few hours to track the progress. Maybe it's something about this planet, suggested Yuna Choi, when Dr. Park briefed the colony leadership. Some kind of healing property in the environment. Or maybe, said Dong Yun, we're not as fragile as those aliens think we are. The silicon organisms kept attacking, kept dissolving equipment and injuring colonists. But something strange was happening. The colonists who had been attacked once seemed to resist the second attack better. Their suits lasted longer, their injuries were less severe, and they recovered even faster than before. Dr. Park started running blood tests on the affected colonists. What he found changed everything he thought he knew about human biology. The colonists' immune systems weren't just fighting off the silicon organisms. They were adapting to them, learning to recognize and counter their chemical attacks. The body is actually incorporating some of the silicon structures, he reported in amazement. It's using them to strengthen cellular walls and improve healing response. The human immune system is treating these organisms not as invaders, but as resources. Up in space, Velshi watched the colony reports with growing disbelief. According to her instruments, dozens of humans should be dead by now. The silicon feeders were among the most dangerous microorganisms known to galactic science. They had wiped out entire ecosystems on other worlds. But the humans weren't dying. They were adapting. This cannot be correct, Velshi said, checking her readings again. The casualty reports show rapid healing, return to full function, even improved resistance. How is this possible? Buzzik's compound eyes focused on the data streams. Perhaps their medical technology is more advanced than we thought? Some kind of nanomedical system we didn't detect? But deep scans of the colony showed no advanced medical equipment beyond basic surgical tools and diagnostic devices. The healing was happening naturally, or at least with minimal technological assistance. Contact the High Council, Velshi ordered. They need to see this. 3 weeks after the first attack, Taewon was back at work, setting up power generators, with no visible signs of his previous injuries. His hands, which had been burned down to the bone, looked perfectly normal. If anything, the skin seemed tougher than before. More resistant to damage. Sunho had not only regrown his lost fingers, but they seemed to work better than the originals. More sensitive to heat and pressure, stronger grip, faster reflexes. He joked that maybe losing them was the best thing that had ever happened to his hands. The colony was not just surviving the silicon organism attacks, it was thriving. The colonists were learning to work with the organisms rather than against them, finding ways to use their chemical properties for construction and manufacturing. What had seemed like a death trap was becoming humanity's first successful extrasolar colony. And in space above, the aliens watched in growing amazement as the fragile humans proved to be anything but fragile. Ambassador Velshi couldn't believe what her instruments were telling her. She ran the scans again, checking and double-checking the readings from the human colony below. The results remained the same, impossible as they seemed. Show me the medical data again, she ordered Buzzik, her crystal features reflecting the light from the monitor screens in sharp, fractured patterns. The Crystal scientist's mandibles clicked nervously as he brought up the holographic displays. The human designated Tae-1 suffered tissue damage that penetrated to skeletal structures. According to galactic medical standards, survival probability was less than 12%. Full recovery was considered impossible. And his current status? Complete cellular regeneration achieved in 18 standard days. New tissue shows improved resistance to silicon-based corrosives. Subject has returned to full operational capacity. Velshi studied the before and after images. The first showed burns that would have killed any known species within hours. The second showed healthy, unmarked skin. This must be some kind of technological augmentation. Hidden cybernetic implants, perhaps. Deep tissue scans show no artificial elements, Buzzik replied. The regeneration appears to be entirely biological, natural human biology. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Park was conducting his own examinations, and his findings were even more remarkable than what the aliens could see from space. He had been studying human healing for 20 years, but what he was witnessing on Kepler 442c defied everything he thought he knew about medicine. Sunho, I need you to hold still for just a moment longer, he said, running another scan of the maintenance workers' regenerated fingers. The bone density was actually higher than normal human standards. The nerve pathways showed enhanced connectivity. Even the fingerprints had grown back, identical to the originals but somehow more defined. Doc, you've scanned these fingers 50 times already, Sunho complained, though he was smiling. They work fine. Better than fine, actually. I can feel things I never noticed before. Dr. Park shook his head in amazement. That's what I don't understand. Human beings don't regenerate entire body parts. We heal cuts and broken bones, yes, but completely rebuilding lost tissue, growing new organs, this shouldn't be possible. But it was happening not just to Sunho, but to all the colonists who had been injured by the silicon organisms. Taewon's rebuilt skin was tougher than normal human skin, more resistant to heat and chemical damage. A woman named Yunbi had lost part of her lung to the organisms, and the new tissue that grew back had greater capacity and efficiency than the original. Maybe we never had the chance to see what humans could really do, suggested Yuna Choi during one of their evening medical briefings. Back on Earth, we have hospitals and surgery and medicine that fixes problems before our bodies have to. Maybe we never needed to regenerate before. Dr. Park considered this. It was true that modern human medicine had advanced to the point where severe injuries were usually treated immediately. Broken bones were set and splinted. Damaged organs were repaired, or replaced wounds were stitched closed. The body rarely had to heal completely on its own. But even so, he argued, the genetic capability for this level of regeneration should have been documented. We've studied human biology for centuries. Above them, the alien observers were having similar discussions. Velshi had called in additional experts from across the Federation. Representatives from 12 different species had arrived to study the impossible humans. The tissue samples are remarkable, reported Dr. Zethian, a Velthari medical specialist whose crystalline body was even more complex than Velshi's. The cellular structure shows adaptations that develop in real time. Each exposure to harmful elements results in improved resistance. Evolutionary adaptation in real time is theoretically possible, added War Master Theclon of the armored Durrani species. But it typically requires thousands of generations. These humans are doing it within their own lifespans. Velshi's faceted head turned toward the viewing screen showing the colony. What about their healing rates? How do they compare to Federation species? Dr. Zethian consulted his data. A Velthari with similar injuries would require crystal replacement therapy and 60 standard days for structural regrowth. A crystal would shed the damaged sections and regrow them over 40 standard days. The Durrani would simply replace the damaged area with cybernetic implants. And the humans? Complete biological regeneration in 18 days with improved functionality. No external intervention required beyond basic wound care. The implications were staggering. The Federation had classified humanity as fragile because they lacked natural armor, claws, or obvious defensive capabilities. But what if their strength wasn't in preventing damage, but in recovering from it? Dr. Park was reaching the same conclusions. He had started keeping detailed records of every injury and recovery, building a database that would revolutionize human medicine if anyone back on Earth believed it. The pattern was clear. Humans could recover from almost anything, given enough time and the right conditions. I want to try something, he announced to the colony leadership during their weekly meeting. I want to volunteer for controlled exposure to the silicon organisms. Absolutely not, said Dongyun immediately. We need you healthy. You're the only real doctor we have. That's exactly why I need to do this, Dr. Park insisted. If I'm going to understand what's happening to us, I need to experience it myself. Besides, if my theory is correct, I should recover just like everyone else. After much debate, they agreed to a limited test. Dr. Park exposed a small area of his arm to a controlled sample of the silicon organisms. The aliens, watching from orbit, saw this and assumed the humans had finally lost their collective sanity. They are deliberately inflicting damage upon themselves, Buzik reported in confusion. This behavior makes no strategic sense. But Dr. Park's theory proved correct. The organisms attacked his skin, causing burns similar to what others had experienced. Then his body began the remarkable process of healing and adaptation. Within days, the damaged tissue was replaced with new cells that showed complete resistance to the silicon organisms. It's not just healing, he reported excitedly to Captain Jiwan during their daily communication. The body is learning. Each attack makes us stronger, more resistant, better adapted. We're not fragile at all. We're the opposite. We're anti-fragile. The term anti-fragile wasn't in the Federation's classification system. They understood species that were tough, species that were weak, and species that could adapt slowly, over many generations. But a species that became stronger through damage that improved through adversity? That was unprecedented. Word began to spread through the Federation network. The humans who had been dismissed as too delicate for serious consideration were displaying capabilities that challenged everything galactic science understood about biology and evolution. Request permission to begin direct contact protocols. Velshi transmitted to the High Council. These humans may require reclassification. The response came back within hours. Permission granted. Begin comprehensive biological assessment. Priority 1 classification review authorized. Down on the planet, Dr. Park looked at his healed arm and smiled. The skin was tougher now, more flexible, better than it had been before the test. He thought about the implications of what they were discovering, not just for the colony but for All of humanity. The galaxy had laughed at them for being soft and weak. Soon, it would learn that being soft didn't mean being fragile. It meant being adaptable. And being adaptable, as any species that had survived evolution's challenges knew, was the greatest strength of all. The news of humanity's impossible recovery spread through the Galactic Federation like wildfire. Within weeks of Dr. Park's controlled exposure experiment, representatives from dozens of species were requesting permission to visit the human colony. What had started as a routine observation of a protected species was becoming the most significant biological discovery in Federation history. Admiral Somin arrived from Earth aboard the battleship Resilience, accompanied by a fleet of support vessels and several thousand additional colonists. Unlike Captain Jiwan's diplomatic mission 3 months earlier, this was a show of strength. The humans were no longer asking permission. They were announcing their presence. The situation has changed considerably since your last report, Admiral Somin told Captain Jiwan as they reviewed the colony's progress. Earth's governments are very interested in what you've discovered here. Dr. Park had been working around the clock, documenting every aspect of human regeneration and adaptation. His medical tent had become a research laboratory where he conducted experiments that would have been impossible on Earth due to safety regulations and ethical concerns. Admiral, you need to see this, he said, leading her to his latest test subject. Ji-hoon, a former military medic who had volunteered for the colony, lay on an examination table with sensors attached to various parts of his body. Ji-hoon has been exposed to 17 different alien pathogens over the past month, Dr. Park explained. Viruses, bacteria, fungi, even some energy-based organisms that the Velthari discovered on gas giants. Each exposure resulted in temporary illness followed by complete immunity. Admiral Somin studied the medical readouts. Complete immunity, not just resistance? Better than immunity, Dr. Park replied. His immune system now produces antibodies that are more effective against these pathogens than any known treatment in the Federation database. He's essentially become a living cure for diseases that have plagued alien species for millennia. Ji-hoon sat up on the examination table, looking perfectly healthy despite having been systematically infected with enough alien diseases to kill a dozen Federation citizens. Doc, I feel better than I did when I was 20. All those infections, they didn't just make me immune, they made me stronger. The alien delegation that arrived to study these impossible humans was the largest scientific expedition in Federation history. 12 species sent their best medical researchers, biologists, and xenobiologists. The Velthari High Council, which had never shown interest in any species classified below Class A, sent their most senior scientists. Ambassador Velshi found herself in the unusual position of being a junior observer in her own mission. The lead investigator was now Dr. Zethian, whose crystalline structure pulsed with different colors as he processed the incredible data streaming in from the human colony. The regeneration rates continue to exceed all theoretical models, he reported to the assembled scientists. Subject Sunho has regrown entire limb sections. Subject Taewon shows complete recovery from organ damage that should have been fatal. And now, Subject Ji-hoon demonstrates immunity acquisition that defies every law of immunology we know. Young-ho, a biologist from Earth who had arrived with Admiral Somin's fleet, had volunteered for the most extreme tests yet conducted. He had been exposed to atmospheric conditions that would kill most Federation species, survived in environments with toxic gases and extreme temperatures, and recovered from injuries that would have required cybernetic replacement for any other known being. I don't understand what's happening to me, Young-ho confided to Dr. Park during one of their sessions. Every day I feel different, stronger, more aware. It's like my body is becoming something more than human. Not more than human, Dr. Park corrected. More human than we ever knew was possible. We've been looking at our species through the lens of safety and comfort for so long, we forgot what we were capable of when pushed to our limits. The alien scientists were struggling to accept what they were seeing. The Krikstal delegation had brought their finest bioengineers expecting to find hidden technology that explained human regeneration. Instead, they found biology that made their own evolutionary advantages seem primitive. Their cellular structure is impossibly complex, reported Chief Engineer Buzik to his superiors. Each cell contains redundant systems for repair and adaptation. It's as if every individual cell is a complete organism capable of independent survival and modification. The Durrani War Master, Theklan, was particularly interested in human combat applications. His species had evolved thick armor plating and natural weapons, making them the Federation's premier warrior class. But watching humans recover from injuries that would permanently disable a Durrani warrior was changing his perspective on strength. They do not fight to avoid damage, he observed. They fight knowing they can recover from any damage inflicted. This changes the entire philosophy of warfare. Admiral Soman was thinking along the same lines. She had arrived expecting to find a small, struggling colony that needed protection and support. Instead, she found humans who were thriving in conditions that would be lethal to most galactic citizens. How many worlds in the Federation are considered too dangerous for colonization? She asked Velshi during one of their formal meetings. Approximately 40% of known habitable worlds contain hazards that make them unsuitable for most species, Velshi replied. Toxic atmospheres, aggressive microorganisms, extreme weather patterns, dangerous wildlife. And now you've seen that humans can not only survive in such conditions, but actually become stronger because of them. Velshi's crystalline features shifted colors as she processed this implication. You are suggesting that humans could colonize worlds that other species cannot? I'm stating it as fact, Admiral Soman replied. And I'm also suggesting that the Federation's classification system might need some updating. The tests continued for weeks. Human volunteers subjected themselves to conditions that would have required evacuation protocols for any other species. They were exposed to radiation that should have been lethal, infected with diseases that had no known cure, and injured in ways that should have been permanently disabling. Each time, they recovered. Each time, they came back stronger than before. Youngho quote-S final test was the most dramatic yet. He volunteered to be exposed to a combination of hazards that had never been survived by any known life form, a cocktail of alien toxins, extreme radiation, and aggressive pathogens, all while being subjected to atmospheric pressure that would crush most beings. The alien scientists expected to witness the first human death in their experiments. Instead, they watched Youngho not just survive, but emerge from the test chamber with enhanced sensory capabilities, improved physical strength, and immunity to every harmful agent they had used. This is impossible, Dr. Zethian stated flatly. No biological system can adapt this rapidly and thoroughly. It violates fundamental laws of evolution and biochemistry. Maybe your laws need updating, Dr. Park replied quietly. The final report that went back to the Federation High Council was unprecedented in its scope and implications. Humanity was not just being recommended for reclassification. An entirely new classification system was being proposed to accommodate their unique capabilities. Class A adaptive species status is insufficient, the report concluded. Humans demonstrate regenerative and adaptive capabilities that exceed any known biological system. Recommend creation of new classification, Class S survival species. But even as the reports were being filed and new protocols were being written, humanity was already moving beyond the need for Federation approval. Admiral Soman's fleet had split up, with exploration vessels heading toward the most dangerous and inhospitable worlds known to galactic science. The galaxy was about to learn that what they had seen on Kepler 442c was just the beginning of human capability. The species they had dismissed as too fragile for serious consideration was about to become the most valuable asset in known space. And the best part, from humanity's perspective, was that every challenge would only make them stronger. 6 months after first contact, the Galactic Federation Council chambers buzzed with an energy that hadn't been felt in centuries. Representatives from every major species in known space had gathered for an emergency session that would reshape their understanding of life itself. At the center of it all sat the humans, no longer the fragile curiosities they had once appeared to be. Admiral Jiwon Kim, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood before the assembled delegates in her crisp Earth military uniform. She no longer needed an environmental suit. Human biology had adapted to Federation standard atmospheres faster than anyone thought possible. Her presence commanded respect in a way that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. The Galactic Federation officially recognizes humanity as a Class S survival species, announced High Counselor Velthara, the ancient crystal being whose authority extended across thousands of star systems. This classification has been created specifically to acknowledge capabilities that exceed all previous biological parameters. The chamber filled with the sounds of dozens of different species expressing amazement, chirps, clicks, harmonic resonances, and electromagnetic pulses that translated into words of disbelief. The humans had gone from being classified as fragile to being in a category all their own. Dr. Hyunwoo Park, now bearing the title of Chief Xenobiological Researcher, presented his findings to the gathered delegates. The data he shared would revolutionize galactic medicine and biology for generations to come. Human regenerative capabilities continued to exceed our initial measurements, he reported, his words being simultaneously translated into hundreds of languages and communication methods. We can recover from injuries that would be fatal to any other known species. We can adapt to environments that would require complex life support systems for others. Most importantly, we become stronger with each challenge we face. In the audience, Ambassador Velshi watched with what might have been pride. She had been the first to witness human capabilities, and her initial reports had seemed so impossible that the High Council had required additional verification. Now she was watching those same impossible humans being invited to join the Federation's most elite organizations. The transformation of human status had happened remarkably quickly, but it was based on achievements that spoke for themselves. Human colonies were now thriving on 17 worlds that had previously been considered uninhabitable. Worlds with toxic atmospheres, aggressive wildlife, extreme weather, and hazardous geology were becoming productive human settlements. Commander Min-Seo Lee, now General of the 1st Human Expeditionary Force, had established training facilities on 3 of the most dangerous worlds in known space. Her soldiers trained in conditions that would kill most Federation species within minutes, emerging as an elite force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The traditional concept of military strength has been completely redefined, reported War Master Theclon to his Durrani superiors. We built our warriors to be tough and well-armored, capable of withstanding damage. But humans approach warfare from the opposite direction. They absorb damage and become stronger because of it. The most dramatic example of human capability came when the crisis everyone had been fearing finally arrived. Deep space monitoring stations detected something that made even the most advanced Federation species consider evacuation. A plague-class organism from beyond the galactic rim, a collection of virulent diseases and aggressive microbes that had already consumed 3 entire star systems. The plague moved from system to system like a wave of death, turning flourishing worlds into lifeless rocks within weeks. It was the kind of galactic catastrophe that occurred every few thousand years, the sort of event that usually resulted in the abandonment of entire sectors of space. Every Federation species began immediate evacuation procedures. Entire populations fled to safer regions of the galaxy, while emergency protocols were activated to contain the spread of the plague. The Federation's best scientists worked frantically to develop some kind of defense, but their projections were grim. That was when humanity volunteered to make direct contact. You're proposing to deliberately expose yourselves to organisms that have killed trillions of beings, High Counselor Velthara asked in amazement during the emergency session. We're proposing to do what we've always done, Admiral Soman replied calmly. Adapt and overcome. The Federation leadership tried to talk them out of it. The plague organisms were beyond anything previously encountered, a combination of viral, bacterial, fungal, and energy-based life forms that worked together to consume all biological matter they encountered. No known medical technology could even slow their advance, much less stop it. But humanity had moved beyond the need for permission. Human vessels, led by volunteers like Taewon, Sunho, and Jihoon, headed directly into the infected systems, while every other species fled in the opposite direction. Young-ho, whose body had become a living laboratory of adaptation and immunity, led the first direct contact team. He and his crew deliberately exposed themselves to the plague organisms, allowing the alien diseases to attack them, while Federation scientists watched in horror from safe distances. What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. The plague organisms attacked human biology, just as they had attacked every other form of life they had encountered. But instead of consuming the human cells, they found themselves being consumed. The human immune system didn't just fight off the plague, it incorporated useful genetic material while destroying harmful elements. Within days, the humans weren't just immune to the plague, they had become a cure for it. The human immune response is producing compounds that neutralize all known variants of the plague organisms, Dr. Park reported in amazement as he studied blood samples from the contact team. Not just neutralize, actually convert the harmful organisms into beneficial ones. Teams of humans spread throughout the infected systems, their very presence beginning to heal worlds that had been written off as lost. Planets that had been consumed by the plague began to show signs of recovery, as human-produced antibodies spread through the biosphere. The galaxy watched in amazement as the fragile species they had initially dismissed saved entire civilizations from extinction. The humans didn't just survive the worst biological catastrophe in recorded history, they turned it into an opportunity for growth and improvement. In the aftermath, when the plague had been not just stopped but completely eliminated from the galaxy, the Federation's perspective on humanity underwent its final transformation. They were no longer seen as a species that needed protection, but as the protectors of every other species. Ambassador Velshi, now serving as humanity's chief liaison with the Federation, reflected on how completely their understanding had changed. "We thought strength meant armor, claws, and weapons," she reported to her superiors. "We never considered that true strength might mean the ability to face any challenge and emerge stronger than before." The galaxy now looked to humanity not as subjects to be managed, but as partners in exploring the most dangerous frontiers of known space. Every world that was too hostile for other species became a potential human colony. Every biological threat that arose became an opportunity for humans to develop new resistances and capabilities. Dr. Park, now heading the Galactic Institute for Adaptive Biology, smiled as he looked out at the bustling space station that had become humanity's first true home among the stars. Ships arrived daily carrying human volunteers ready to tackle challenges that would terrify any other species. "We never knew what we were capable of," he mused to Admiral Jiwan during one of their regular meetings. "We spent so long trying to make life safe and comfortable that we forgot what humans could do when pushed to their limits." "And now the galaxy knows," she replied, watching human ships depart for missions that would have been suicide runs for any other species. "They laughed at us for being delicate. Now they depend on us being indestructible." The transformation was complete. Humanity had gone from being the galaxy's most protected species to being its most valuable asset. They were the ones who went where others couldn't go, survived what others couldn't survive, and healed from what others couldn't heal from. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of challenges that would destroy any normal civilization. But humanity, as the galaxy had learned, was anything but normal. They were the species that grew stronger with every challenge, the beings who turned adversity into advantage. And that made them the most powerful force in known space.